Hi, and welcome to Mental Health Matters with Mish this wet and rainy Thursday night here in Rockingham. On the other end of the phone, I have Carl with me. Are you there, Carl?
Indeed, Mish. Indeed. Good
Hello,
evening.
lovely to talk to you. Are you dry and warm where you are?
Yes, I am actually. Been out today driving, and there was lots of water on the road, and
Oh.
it was all very exciting. But it's lovely to see, actually.
Are you
Yeah,
Rockingham way?
indeed. Yeah, yeah, right on the coast.
Oh,
So yeah.
lovely. Very, very
Mm,
nice. We've
mm,
just had a
mm,
just had
mm.
a quite a heavy shower come through, so
Yes,
yeah. But it is winter. We can't complain.
that's right.
And I was
We
actually
get
dig.
6 months, six months of hot weather. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we have had a hot summer. And I was
Mm.
actually digging out the front the other day, and with all the rain that we had, I thought it would be soaked right through. But honestly, it was still dry about an inch down. So
Ah,
we haven't had
interesting.
a lot. We haven't had enough rain yet. Anyway, let's not talk about that. You have a wonderful story that you'd like to share with us. Where would you want to start your story?
Yeah, I think, well, I was really inspired by the work you're doing online
Thank
and
you.
just kind of just, um, uh, it's probably not quite the right word, but kind of normalizing,
Yes,
mental
I
struggles and
think that's
mental
the right
health.
word. Honestly, I do.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So, and by normalizing, I don't mean minimizing. I
No, of
mean,
course.
just bringing it into the mainstream and
Yep.
going, this is where it's at.
Yep.
So, mate, and I think we'll probably just start off by saying that, this is a story about my wife and I. We lost a child, so just to sort of give people a little bit of a heads up
Yeah,
about
I will
about
put a
that.
warning on for sure. But thanks for
Yeah,
reminding me about
cool.
that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, like you go through life. I born in New Zealand, lived a pretty awesome childhood life on a dairy farm in the middle of
Oh,
the North Island, and
awesome.
my folks split up when I was 8, and that was kind of the first big, I'm gonna call it a life quake, event in my life. I was the third of four children, and we had this fantastic life, and it all got blown to bits. One day
Yeah.
early in the new year when I was about 8 or 9 years old, and I can remember thinking, "Oh, this is really a bit tough," but I found ways of getting through it, and I found I felt I had to support my father because I stayed with him, and my siblings
Okay.
went to live with my mother,
Uh huh.
and I learnt pretty quickly, if I showed him my feelings, he would get upset about that.
Wow.
Not
Okay.
not towards me, but more like, "Oh, I'm a failure. I'm really sorry I've let you
Oh,
down."
I
So
see.
yeah, so it's like I was kind of learnt in that moment to, like, okay, just keep to yourself what you need to keep to yourself, and it sort of life kind of normalizes as it does as much as it can, and there were some crazy moments in that period, and there's a lot of a sort of blurry because there's a lot of emotions were sort of like happening, but. Life sort of settled down again when I was about 14. My father met a lady, was 13. She became my stepmother, and we kind of like, sort of like, and my siblings come back to live on the farm, and
Oh,
life
cool.
sort of got back into gear again. And then when I was 15, Dad sold the dairy farm, and in the middle of the school year, we shifted across to the other side of the island, the North Island, to a little place called Aria. Bought a sheep and beef farm there, but
Wow.
unbeknown to him and us, he was quite sick with cancer at the time.
Oh,
We
you're
didn't know,
kidding.
and he passed away just a handful of
Oh.
months
Oh
after
no.
shifting to the farm. So suddenly it was sort of a very much a deja vu moment, in the sense of suddenly I was left on my own with my stepmother. My siblings, two older sisters had left. My younger brother lived with my mum, and I was 16 and back into that kind of like cover everything up and just
Okay.
sort of just soldier on, really.
Yeah.
And like outwardly people are like, "Oh, you cope really well," and
Yeah.
and I think I did, to a greater or lesser extent, but
Do
it,
you
it
think? Can I
was
just butt in there for a second? Do you
mm,
think that the fact that you were hiding your real feelings was that because you were a male more? Do you think?
Well, I only sort of know being a male, but I think, yeah, I think so.
Sorry. You know
No,
what
I
I'm
think,
trying to say
yeah,
is males they try to be a man,
that's
and they don't want to show their emotions, or they're taught not to show their emotions.
absolutely, and certainly, I think, the boys don't cry kind of
Yeah.
thing definitely features in that. Yeah, absolutely. I think you're not wrong in that. And also too, you've got to be strong. And,
Yeah.
I feel I had to be strong for my dad,
Uh
and then I
huh.
had to be strong for my stepmother. And so life sort of like, once again, kind of after a couple of years, life leveled out, and I got some mates around us, and I've actually reconnected with one of them just recently, but we did
Oh,
lots of
cool.
like things on horses and motorbikes, and
Awesome.
we
The
had this
boys
very,
thing. Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
lots of good fun things. But I went overseas to Germany for not for a long period, a couple of
Okay.
months, and I come back, and my stepmother had just like, unbeknownst to me, leased the farm out.
Oh.
So I got back to kind of thinking I'm going to run the farm, and we had plans to buy another farm because it wasn't a big farm and it was struggling financially.
Yeah.
And she decided, at least the farm out, you need to go out for a couple of years and get some world experience, then come back and run the farm. And it was like, oh, okay, not quite what I'd planned, but I
Yeah.
left the farm and I never went back. It was
Okay.
sold
Yeah.
15 months later.
Wow.
So it was
It's
like
obviously
that was,
something she had to do.
yeah,
Not
definitely, yeah.
necessarily. I mean, obviously, financial reasons was a big thing for that, but mainly, or what I'm saying, not mainly, but she had memories in that place too.
Absolutely, definitely. And I think, she met somebody else, and then Dad's way Dad had set his will up, meant that she ended up getting the lion's share of the farm when it was sold. And look, I
Yeah.
mean, it is what it is,
Yep.
like that's what
Yep.
happens.
Yeah. Of course.
When families break up and when people die,
Yep.
things, change irrevocably. So, yeah. Anyway, so, like turning, sort of like setbacks into positives, and I went off and started a very successful farming career. I met my wife of 32 years. We've been together,
Cool.
and we got married after a year of courting, and life kind of just
Courting.
got, yeah.
That shows how old we are.
We were very old fashioned, yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very, and yeah, I was quite conservative. I did have quite a spiritual moment in my life after Dad died, and I really went to look, what is this deeper meaning? I've never been inside a church or anything like that, and I didn't go into that. Well, I did go into the church for a while, but then come out going, it's not quite what I need. But I did have quite a spiritual experience, which has kind of underpinned my life
Okay.
since then. And and we had our first child, and it was all good. I was on the up and up, and I had gone through two really good farms. Ended up with my dream job down in the Hawke's Bay, running a beautiful 900-acre deer stud,
Oh, wonderful.
and backdropped against the snow-capped
Oh,
Ruahine
wow.
ranges, and it was just stunning. But it was there really where my story of kind of where you bury stuff, how it comes up, and this is where it sort of started. So, with our first child, my wife had been quite ill with what we just considered was a morning sickness, but it's a thing called hyperemesis gravidaeum,
Wow.
which is like extreme morning sickness. And we well, she got through with Courtney, and she, like, when she gave birth, she was no heavier than when she conceived. So, and she's only small, Nikki. She's only 5 foot,
Wow.
nothing much, you know. And then when our second child was conceived, almost instantly she started getting ill again. And I was like, oh, like, it's okay, you got through it, and
Yeah.
I'll cook down the other end of the house. I'll make sure I don't burn the toast. But she ended up getting more and more ill until she was eventually in hospital with drips down her
Oh,
nose and
gosh.
into her heart,
Oh,
and it
no.
was it was just, and we hadn't been in this job very long. We'd shifted away from all our support network.
Uh,
So we were down in the Hawke's Bay, sort of 250 odd kilometres away from any kind of really close friends and family. But we developed, a nice little friendship but you don't have that family
Yep.
support
Yep.
where we really needed it.
Needed it. Yep.
And I think the stress of those moments was just unbelievable. I think if you could sweat blood, that would be those
Oh
moments when,
gosh.
our 3-year-old daughter was like, where's mummy? And I told her the hospital was like a castle because it was an old kind of old hospital that looked a bit like a castle. So, oh, don't worry, mummy's just in the castle at the
Oh.
moment, and she needs some time there. And that was impacting her. And
Yeah.
Nikki was extremely ill. And I can remember waking up at about 2:30 one morning, and my mouth was just dripping acid. It was just like cortisol pouring into my mouth,
Wow.
and literally, I've got a reasonably good bald spot now, and literally all my hair. I woke up one morning, my pillow was just black. Just the stress
Wow.
of that intense pressure of somebody that you love so
You do it.
deeply
Yep.
is so ill, and there's nothing you can do about
Yeah, that
it.
would be awful.
And sort of going back to the question, is it a man thing? A man
Yeah.
thing is to kind of like, I'll go and protect, and I'll go and provide a house, and I'll provide income, and
But there's
a-
limits, it was
abs-
totally out of your
abs-
hands.
absolutely. And we lost our child. We lost
Oh,
that
I'm so
child.
sorry.
And the doctor, during the process of delivery, I was really losing the plot. I was not in a good space. And this doctor came in, and he was old school, but he just came in and he goes, he took me outside, come outside, and he says, he put his hands on my shoulder and said, pull yourself together, man. You need to be here for your wife, and you need to put your feelings behind, and you need to be strong for her, which was not incorrect at all. But he didn't tell me when not to stop feeling like that.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And I wrote a piece on one of my blogs a little while ago, and it was that kind of feeling of not breathing. And the story that came into my mind was probably about the time when my parents broke up. We were at a friend's place when I was 9 years old, swimming in a swimming pool, and there was a bigger, older teenager boy there. We were just teasing him, being little smart Alex, and he pushed me under the water and held me under for quite a long time, and I panicked. And all my friends were punching him and panicking. When he let me up, I kind of remember breathing and
Yep.
just, being so
Gasping.
grateful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for years after losing Caitlin, our baby, I was still being held underwater emotionally. I just
Wow.
had pushed, like I'd let the doctor's hands push my shoulders underwater and
Oh,
and
wow.
and don't come up for that emotional breath.
Oh,
So, like don't share with Nikki, what you're really feeling at the moment
wow.
about how this grief is impacting you. And like you tend to be very good at
Yep.
plastering over the cracks.
Masking. Yeah.
And yeah, definitely. And so we I gave up farming 6 months after that. I just I couldn't face it anymore.
You probably didn't
I
have the
was,
energy physically and mentally.
yeah, definitely. I stuck at it, and I was a very good farmer, but I knew I was going to walk away from this career, but I just couldn't. I couldn't be where I was. I needed to completely kind of like re-break. So we
Yep.
shifted away from there, to ended up creating a little business for myself, fencing contracting, and that was going really well, and everything was kind of going well. And then I got into sort of sales and jobs, and ended up like landing in WA 8 years ago, with a role with a feed company, New Zealand horse feed
Oh, yeah.
company. And it was really here was that complete shift,
Were
and a
you
couple
able
of
to
tweakings.
breathe? Could you take that breath?
This is where it sort of leading to. So, well, I was working in New Zealand. I was working all the hours God sent. I was like just flat out. I was just I don't remember my 40s at all. They were just
A blur.
a swoosh of activity. Just keeping myself busy. So,
Yep.
I was very good at any job I did. I got really stuck into it. I was very applied, and then I met a lady down at a event in Christchurch where we were sponsoring down there, and she just, she was just talking to me about how she'd got into adrenal fatigue and how she'd sort of overcome that, and how she'd sort of moved through, stages of grief in her life, and it really resonated with me. And she talked a bit about meditation, and it just sort of sent me down this rabbit hole
Okay.
of okay, I can, okay, so is it okay to feel like this? Is it okay to have this sort of locked up feeling in your stomach all the time and this stress, and she was like, yeah, it's okay to feel it, but you've got to move through it. And
Yep.
so it was from there that I really started thinking about how can I move through this. And I started getting into, I actually did some yoga, and got into meditation, and then deeper and deeper into breath work. So Wim Hof, I don't know if your
I
listeners
have
are
heard.
familiar
I
with
have
him.
heard. Yep. Yep. Heard that
Yeah,
before.
so yeah, he was all about the breath and this cold water, and and it didn't sound particularly pleasant. But what I did was I basically, yeah, and we left NZ, sold everything. Nicky and I, we just shifted over, and we left everything behind in New Zealand. We came over with nine suitcases of this and two cats, and that was about it.
Wow.
Wound up in WA, and it was just that kind of like breakaway that I needed to change locations, and
Yep.
but also to not only change locations but take advantage of that change.
Yeah.
So
A new
take advantage
start.
of. Absolutely. So, wasn't about running away. It was more about facing, facing those feelings that I had. So I really got very deeply into the breathwork side of things, and every day would do, 3 or 4 rounds of very intense breath work. And it was in those periods of time, you go in with an intention. I just want to, how should I really feel about this, or what are my thoughts really about this, this stress that I've got, or this trauma that I've had, or and it was through those periods, because if you do breath work right, it will send you into a deeper brain state. It will slow
Okay.
your brain waves down, and it'll just give you space to process and think. And it's you work for it. It's not easy, but it's very encouraging.
So it gives you
And
clarity
so
in some way.
yeah, absolutely. Just yeah, you just strips everything away. And then I did cold water therapy, and I still do occasionally. And there was a group called the Rockingham Penguins that
Yeah, they're
started up
still
with
around. They're
Brock.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah. Brock started it up.
Yep.
And I've been doing cold showers anyway, so I pop down there and would jump in the ocean. I did that for 3 years, and combine that with breath work. And then that kind of really just helped me unravel, and and not have the fear a fear attached to looking at that deeper sense of loss, or that deeper sense of grief. As suddenly having the ability to kind of like just zoom out, and not be disassociated, but just be a little bit compartmentalized, and go, what
Okay.
would I say? What would I say? So one of my things was, like if I walked into, that room at 2:30 in the morning and I saw Carl standing there, what would I say to him? And I would say to him, look, it's perfectly normal to have this human response to the stress that you're going under at the moment. This is a perfectly human
Human.
feeling that you've got.
That's right.
You're facing a very strong challenge at the moment, a hard challenge, and one that's not really going to resolve itself simply. And this is okay to feel like this. So it was, yeah, really, really quite enlightening, and and freeing, and suddenly going, it's okay, and almost visualize giving myself a hug and going, it's okay, just hang in there.
So
and
totally
and
opposite to what the doctor said to you.
Yeah, pretty
really.
much. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
definitely. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, well done. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
So lean into that.
Mm.
And then part of that, the next thing, and going back to the lass that I spoke to down in Christchurch, she said, the biggest thing was we have to learn to love ourselves, Carl.
Mm.
And it took me months and months and months. And then one day after a cold shower, I just stood in front of the mirror and I just looked at it and said, I love you, into my
Mm.
eyes.
Wow.
And I'd like to say it was a lightning bolt and my life changed. It did, but not in this, like it wasn't this like conversion moment. It
It
was
wasn't a
just
movie
this.
moment.
No, it was just this really slow unpacking of this,
Wow.
the way we can detest ourselves, the way we
Mm.
can, we can be so hard on
Yeah,
ourselves,
that's me. Yeah.
and if you wouldn't say to, I wouldn't say to somebody the things I was saying to myself.
I know. Yep.
You know?
You're right.
So it's like, so how do I unpack this and how do I make this work?
Yep.
So it
Yep.
was really, and then that led me into hypnotherapy.
Mm.
So I found some online hypnotherapy sessions and learned how to basically do house self hypnosis.
Oh, right.
And in those periods of time, in that self hypnosis periods of time, actually have, like you set the pathway first. You go, I want to explore this part of my life.
Mm.
And, once again, a bit like the breath work, which the self hypnosis thing is very similar in a way that it just gives you that space to observe. And then from that, I've gone on to train to be a clinical hypnotherapist, because
Mm.
what I've learned from it was actually, we could carry these huge burdens, and they could be
Yeah.
like massive backpacks, and we just, one of my memories when mum and dad had just split up, and I was really very vulnerable. And we were at this. My dad was a very good rugby player, and we
Mm.
were at this event, and there was a hangi. So a hangi is like
Yeah.
a Maori oven. They put the food in the ground and under hot stones and cover it with dirt
Oh,
under
it's
wet
yummy.
blankets, and oh, it's delicious.
Mm.
Anyway, I was like struggling away to eat this. It was really hot, and I think I'd bitten off more. And this guy walked up to me in the semi dark, and he just said, "Look at you." He said, "You're an idiot, just like your dad."
Oh my
And I was
Lord.
8 years old, and I just died
Oh
inside.
my gosh.
And I never told dad. I never told anyone. I carried that for
Mm.
years.
Mm.
And what a nasty thing to say. But like I picked up that rock that he said to me, and I put it in my
In a
backpack,
backpack. Yeah.
and I carried it,
Oh
for
wow.
years. And then, of course, that just opened up this vulnerability to me. So what school kids are like. We tease one another,
Oh
and
yeah.
and so kids teased you and teased me. Like
Yep.
instead of just laughing it off like I would have done, it was
Yep.
just like it's put another weight in my
Oh
backpack.
wow. That's makes me. I'm
You
actually
know,
got tears in my eyes because that's exactly how I'm feeling.
yeah,
I feel
yeah,
like my burden over because I was teased all through my schooling and bullied all
mm,
through my schooling, and that definitely has burdened me for sure. So I
yeah,
relate to what you're saying.
yeah. And it says more about the person doing the teasing
I know
than
you don't realise that at the
than
time though.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Mm,
And it's so interesting, isn't it? These things that get cast on us, and
mm,
then and it's taken me years to realize that actually that's not me.
yeah.
And the thing you learn in meditation is I'm not my thoughts either.
Mm,
I'm way more than that. I'm not even my name.
yeah. Yeah.
I'm not even this kind of like I identify in this body that I live in,
Mm,
and people recognize my face and my name and my voice, but actually I'm way more
more
than
than
that.
that. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
That's so
So I think,
interesting.
yeah, that ability to kind of like, zoom out and really look at it and go, oh, gee, that was tough,
Mm,
but it's not me, it's not what my life's about.
mm,
And, it took me a long time. That was another one of these things to kind of unpack. And, I think this ability to sort of like, once again, go, well, actually, if I'd gone up to Dad, like I didn't feel safe enough to go up to him and say, hey,
Okay.
this guy said this to me, because I knew he was stressed out about the marriage breakup.
He'd retaliate probably to not to you, but to the person who said it.
I don't know. He wasn't a violent person, so I
Okay.
don't know what he would have done. But he might have. It might have been enough to make him flip. And I was trying to run these calcs in my head, going,
Yeah.
if I go and tell him this, and then I'll just carry this. And he never knew about that. He passed long before I'd even
Yeah.
sort of come to really talk about that to myself about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Let alone somebody else.
Mm.
So it's certainly this damage that we get is it impacts us, but actually it's not irreparable.
That's so good
You
to
know,
hear. Yeah.
yeah, it's not something that we have to carry along. So, what I've learned through the different modalities, and there's 500 different
Mm.
modalities you can use. You can use NLP, you can use cognitive behavioral therapy. Some people now are using plant medicines.
Mm.
There's a whole host of things. I see, different therapies coming online all the time.
Yep.
But really, all it's wanting to do, all these modalities, all they're wanting to do is actually just give you space and
Yeah.
and to a certain extent, shake the snow globe.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it too. There,
Yeah,
that's a very good way of putting it.
you know,
Or,
let the
or, or for
snow
me,
resettle.
it's the opposite. It's to let the snow globe settle.
Yes, yes,
Do you know what I'm saying?
absolutely.
Like this, in my
Yes.
head, that's my snow globe, and it's always fuzzy with the snow going
Okay.
everywhere.
Yes.
So I want that snow
Yes.
to settle.
To settle,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So
Well,
that's the way I see
yeah.
it.
Yeah, so give it a shake, and we'll let it shake, and then just let it
Let
sit,
it
and
settle. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And the beauty of that is if you can, one of the metaphors, we learned in the hypnotherapy training was that imagine that, you go to a snowfield and there's a hard packed snow and people have been running these lines, so you end up with these like ski trails that you can't sort of get out of.
Mm.
They're sort of like they're packed into the snow, but then overnight you get
The
6 or 8
fresh.
inches of snow, and you're the first one down it, and you don't have to go in those patterns anymore. You can
Oh.
choose the line you go. So yeah, shake the snow globe, let it settle, and then go, oh, I want to try a new way about thinking about this.
Wow, that's pretty good. I
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah. So yeah, and that's the other beauty of especially in the hypnagogic state, and you can feel that sometimes when you first wake up in the morning, or just as you're going to sleep. That kind of state where your brain is not quite awake and not quite
Yeah.
asleep. That's kind of that a beautiful. And if you go to sleep, you're going to pass into sleep before you can kind of like do any work. But in the hypnotherapy state, in the hypnosis state, or in the breathwork state, or in the meditative state, what you can do is actually slow that brainwave down. And if you could imagine, Mish, if you could imagine, either fresh snow or maybe even a field of just grass that's ankle length, and you want to get from A to B, and you can just walk through. There's no track, no defined track. You just go, I just want to get over there. I want to actually feel a bit more peaceful about my life. And I think the best way to do it is just to walk in a straight line,
Mm.
and just walk, follow that. You're making your own pathway. In the past there might have been this pathway that deviated left and right, and because you had these boulders on your shoulder weighing you
Or
down with
somebody
things that
else's path you were following.
absolutely,
Mm.
definitely, yeah,
Mm.
yeah, something you got to weigh down on your shoulders. So
Mm.
it's really about that opportunity to kind of like, here's a fresh start, here's a nice blank
Ah, sounds wonderful.
little blank spot. And it's not that you're ever, it's not that you're not going to feel sad or anxious or depressed again. It's actually, you've actually pushed that one, you've dealt with that one,
Mm.
and anything that
Mm.
new comes up, and then you can start to resource yourself, going, well, last time I felt anxious, I remember I took 3 deep breaths, And I named 5 things around me.
Mm.
A water bottle, oh, the phone, oh, the TV, oh, the floor mat, oh, the chair. And I just took my mind away from that anxiety just for a moment, long enough for me not to go down the on path. And now I can sit down and just think, how am I going to cope with this?
Mm.
And you know, dealing with the problem is not always fighting with it. It's not always battling with it. Sometimes it can be minimizing it, and we can't always minimize it because sometimes the consequences are great. But actually, it's taking it with a fresh start. Like
Fresh set of eyes, as they say.
absolutely, yeah,
Mm.
definitely, yeah.
Sounds wonderful. Can
So
anybody be hypnotized?
um, pretty much, if you fall asleep at night, you can be hypnotized.
Okay. All right.
But the beauty of it is, and there's a whole lot of we can do a little side detour here. So what
Mm.
hypnosis isn't, you won't come to a session with me and end up clucking like a chicken or barking like a dog.
That's always the worry. I've been to one of those shows. I've been to one of those comedy shows where he does that, and they're hilarious. And that's what people think hypnosis is the
Yeah.
clucking of the chicken and the yeah. But
Yeah. And interesting enough, that's how hypnotherapy come from, because there was way back in the late 1800s, like Hildegard, I think it was, somebody was walking past this psychotherapist, or was walking past this circus, and he saw this guy doing this hypnosis stage show, and he really sort of people can be made to like bark like dogs. I wonder if they can actually just get out of their brain long enough to think about how they can cope with stress in life.
yeah,
And literally, so they started off kind of like very like any kind of emerging modality, just made a lot of errors, but they worked out that actually, if we can get you into a nice, calm, slow, relaxed state, then you can start to really just view life in another way. And as we kind of like evolve that, and now and more, the person does all the work, but the hypnotherapist really is just there to hold space, create some prompts, and to look at the resources. So for me, some of my resources was I was very resilient, but I was also very good at hiding things. But actually, like one of my resources is resilience. So it's like, okay, well, you are resilient, but you can't always cure everything. You can't
yeah,
always fix everything.
yeah.
So actually, you can let that go.
Sounds
It's
just
not your.
like me. I want to fix the world, but I need to fix myself first. Or yeah, I can't heal the world
Well, I
anyway.
think we fix the world as we fix ourselves, and vice versa. As we fix
True,
ourselves, we
very
fix the
true.
world.
I think I need
And
to be hypnotized. Oh, it sounds
well,
like if it works, it sounds like it would be amazing. There's so much I
well,
need to get rid of.
well, you're more than welcome. Yeah, definitely. As a host of the show, I'm more than welcome to look after you that way.
Thank you. Yeah, it sounds like a
But
good idea.
it's that wonderful state of just space and
Yeah.
awareness and room. Yeah. So a little bit of a detour there, but that's how basically the whole hypnotherapy thing started. What was
Wow.
from stage show hypnosis. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
that's true. That's true. Can I
yeah.
ask your partner? Did she cope in the same way?
She it's been very hard for her.
Mm,
Yeah. So
mm,
she was more, saw herself as a failure,
yep.
not being able to, you know, bring a child to full
Yep.
term. She saw
Yep.
herself as a failure for years,
Mm,
and that's been a heavy burden that
for
on
sure.
both of us.
For
Yeah,
sure. For
yeah.
sure. Has she been able to use hypnosis in any way, or?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, we've done that, and once again, it's not really, it's just about me delivering her to this spot and go,
Spot.
here you go, yeah,
It's
there
up
you
to
go,
you
off you
now.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And that's the biggest thing. And interesting enough, you know, as a couple doing it, it's very healing, because the other thing is, as a hypnotherapist, my own brainwave actually slows down a little bit as well.
Oh, really?
So you often become very in tune with
With your,
what's happening.
yeah.
With the person that you're working through. So it's you have to be very comfortable with ambiguity as a hypnotherapist,
Mm.
because you don't really know what's happening.
You have to be
but but
open-minded
but
a
you
little bit.
but you can kind of you feel the person moving through stages, and a lot of people come to me that have a lot of tension in their bodies,
Mm.
and usually the very first session for them, I just let them go into almost a delta, which is a deep sleep state. They're not actually asleep, but into a delta brainwave, which
Mm.
is a very low hertz rate of the brain, and it's just very relaxing. And one of my clients, he rang me up the 2 days later, and he goes, "Everybody that sees my face can't believe it's my face." They said, "What's happened
Really?
to the tension in your face? It's all gone."
Wow.
And he said, "I usually go to bed at 11 or 12 and wake up at 3." He said, I finished the session with you at 7:30 or 8 o'clock, went to bed at 9:30 and woke up at 8.
Wow. He'd be
He said, "I've
booking in
never
every
slept
week.
like that." And so, it was just that
That's
chance to
great.
actually just completely let the body, because we carry this tension in us so
Yes.
much.
Yes. Yeah.
And the other thing that I had was, I was a terrible sleeper. It started when
Mm.
mum and dad were going through trouble, and I would just lie awake and hear them argue at night, and
Yeah.
then all the chaos after that, and then after dad passed, or during when he was sick, I didn't sleep, and then after he passed, I was a terrible
Mm.
sleeper, and then I sort of got back into, but then when we after we lost Caitlin, sleep just was terrible. I would sleep 2 hours and wake up, and that would be it.
Yeah.
And you can't run like that. You can't
No.
survive like
No,
that.
not
And,
at
and
all.
now I can just go to bed and
Switch right out. That's really good.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
really good.
and, yeah. And if
Um,
I do wake up, I just go. It doesn't matter. I'll be awake. It's
you've
fine.
had it. You've had enough anyway. Yeah. So
Yeah,
the
yeah.
interesting thing about what you've told me tonight is there was an earlier on in the story you told me that you'd gone down this spiritual path in a way. You went into
hmm
church, all that sort of thing. How does that relate to what you're doing now with hypnotherapy? Because even though it's spiritual in its own way, it's dead against the religion side of things, pretty much, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
science.
it's funny that, because because I did have this very much awakening of consciousness, I would
Mm,
say. Like after dad passed, I was like, what's life about? Are we just meat sacks? And we just die, and all this energy just dissipates, or is there more? And I met a friend who was a very lovely guy, and he was more spiritual than religious, but he did give me a Bible, and I started reading the Gospels, and I was like, man, what Jesus stood for was just amazing, and still, I still believe that completely. But then I rushed off to this. We had a little local church, which was Anglican, Presbyterian, Methodist combined, and the minister was up there and speaking a very, sort of like austere language, and it was like I was going, God, I'm kind of meeting this awakening that I'm having isn't really, it's just not, it's not coalescing with me. And
yeah,
I went up to him and I said, I want to be baptized. He goes, oh, you can't. You were baptized as a child. And I said, no, I wasn't. I said, I want to be baptized. So at 16, I got baptized.
yeah.
And it really shook his world, because he was like, I don't know if someone,
Oh,
Jesus was 30 when he got baptized. So come on.
yeah, 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 yeah. I was 30, I think. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So, and then I kind of just I couldn't reconcile it. So I was like, what I was feeling, and then I kind of like threw the whole baby out with the bathwater. So I didn't throw my faith away per se, but I just broke away from the kind of the religiosity. I didn't I
yeah.
didn't like that feeling of and then it was kind of like a bit of a and look, I think Christianity or religion is fine. You know, I'm not against it at
Yeah.
all. For me, it was just not dealing what I needed.
That is, yeah,
And so,
exactly.
yeah, absolutely. So my thinking's evolved a lot more now into, that Christ is, was and is, was a physical entity on earth and did come to show us that, the kingdom of God is inside us. And actually, the wholeness, I read this beautiful quote the other day and it goes, you can write, you're not a drop in the ocean, you're an ocean in a drop.
Oh,
you
wow.
know so yeah, you're not just this little piece of thing out here. You are everything but compressed into one little thing. And so there's that
Yeah.
connectiveness, that
Wow.
connectivity that lives in the world, lives between us as humans. And if we were really conscious of how we treated each other, you wouldn't have a grown man going up to an 8-year-old boy saying you're
Yeah.
an idiot.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
if you, like I've long forgiven him for that and sent him a lot of love and blessing. I don't even know if he's still alive. I wouldn't have a clue.
Yeah.
But actually, he was coming from, a pain stripped,
Yep.
this kind of, I kind of liken pain to a virus quite often. So if
Yep.
somebody's really in pain, they'll spread that pain to somebody else,
Yep.
and then they'll inflict
That's
that pain
true.
on somebody, and then they'll inflict it on somebody else. So
That's
he just
right.
had this unresolved pain virus in his body, and he couldn't let it go apart from actually, you know, um, spilling that out,
Yep.
letting that out of his system.
Yep.
If he
That was
was
his
really
way of
conscious,
coping with it.
yeah, if he was really conscious of me, he would have walked up to me and just said, "Hey, you're right there, boy. Do
Yeah.
you want
Yeah.
to put you want an extra plate, or do you come over here? Wait till it cools down.
Yeah. But you don't
Whatever.
know what upbringing he's had. He could have been told not to use
Absolutely,
emotion, and he was building up so much
Abs-
himself. And that's his story. So, yeah.
absolutely, definitely, yeah, yeah. So it
Interesting.
makes it very hard not to forgive somebody
Yeah, for sure.
once you realise that actually, yeah, they probably had a whole bucket of crap,
Their backpack was
thrown on
heavy as
them.
well.
Yeah, their backpack's full of stones.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
You're so interesting to talk to. I find it
Thank
really
you.
interesting to listen to. It's been great. And there's a lot I'm going to walk away and listen and think about as well. So it's I'll have to re-listen to this interview, I think, just to go over what we've been talking about. There's a lot.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's been an amazing journey for you, because
yeah.
I always see that unfortunately sometimes we have to go through negative things to come out the right way at the other end, if you know what I mean, to find ourselves
Mm.
properly at the other end, or to learn more about ourselves through negative things that have happened, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think, it's about balance. Life
Yeah.
wants to create balance. And I think if I think of you talk about my spiritual walk now, I think I've got to the stage where I don't resist anything and I don't seek anything. And in the sense of actually, I don't resist grief, but I don't really seek it. I don't
Okay.
resist anger, but I don't seek it. I don't resist, um, a whole lot of things. And I'd rather just be in the moment and
Yep.
the moment because really that's all we have. It's this
Correct.
millisecond right now.
Yeah, exactly right. So can I
Everything that's
ask you,
happened is the
are
past.
you
Yeah.
happy?
I think I'm more than happy. I think I
Oh,
have a deeper sense of
life.
connection.
Yeah, connection in
Yeah,
life.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
you're good with,
Happiness is fun, but I think joy is a bit like there's grief and mourning and there's joy and there's happiness. I think that joy is a deeper feeling, and the joy can hold you even when you're going through hard times. Yeah.
oh, that sounds wonderful.
Mm,
Sounds like a
mm,
very
mm.
peaceful place to be. And I'm
It's a nice,
jealous.
yeah. Well, it's available to all of us, and
Yeah.
absolutely, and that's why I wanted to come on because it's actually like, well, why don't, why, I don't. profess to have all the answers at all, and but I was got to the point in my life. It's like, well, either there's just no point continuing on feeling this much stress and tension inside my body,
Yep.
because what is this? Where is the enjoyment in life, or where is this
Yeah.
deeper purpose? And
Yeah.
then slowly picking away at it, and it's fearful at times, but usually when you get in there, you go, oh, this is actually not that bad.
Yeah.
when
That
you
sounds
start
really good.
when you start uncovering those things, you go, oh, this is not that
Or
bad,
what have I been worrying about all these years?
Absolutely, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Can
yeah,
you put
yeah.
a plug on how people can contact you?
Yeah, sure, of course, yeah, absolutely. So it's Hero's Journey Hypnotherapy. That's my Facebook page, and maybe you can put a link. I'll send you a link to
Yeah.
that, and I've got a little website as well. So
Yes, I've
based in
seen that.
Auckland.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I basically just work weekends. So I have a job in the Muggle world, in the real world, working in a circular economy with composting and kind of interesting stuff like that. But my real passion, well, I love what I do, but my real passion is this kind of this modality, and it's a real honor. To me, it's a real honor to have somebody sit in my chair and just go deep inside themselves and just be brave. And as I say to people, you just trust yourself.
Yeah.
Trust
That's the
yourself
hard part. That's the
in
hardest
this
part.
moment. It helps if you trust me. You can trust me a little bit. That's fine. But actually, the deeper thing is trusting yourself.
Yeah.
And the moment you do that, you'll just come into a lovely, deeper spot. And we just find a safe spot for you to start with, and just anchor you in this beautiful safe spot internally. And once we're there, then we can move into the deeper sort of work that you want to do, and just unpick. I'll give you a quick little example of the power of the mind. So, the brain is not very good at discerning what's real and what's not. So if you're sitting at your sofa at night and you're watching Jaws, and suddenly the shark comes up through the water towards the bottom of the boat and there's legs hanging over the edge of the boat, you instinctively lift your feet off the floor, even though there's not a shark in the concrete floor, in the wooden floor, there's not a shark there, but your mind is like telling you there's a shark there, watch out,
Wow.
so like you'll lift your feet up, or like you'll be watching a movie and there'll be a jump scare, or a knock
Yeah.
on the door or something like that, you will react to that because your brain is not very good at saying, hey, that's true and that's not true.
Okay.
And I think it was about 15 months ago. It was just before I finished qualifying my course. My wife and I were watching this thing on Netflix. I can't think what it's called, but it's about these two girls that climb a TV
Oh,
aerial.
I've seen
And
that. Yeah.
yeah. And I have never liked heights. I've been
Me either.
terrified of heights. I couldn't watch the end of it. I had such a visceral reaction to this. I couldn't watch it. I had to leave the room. And I was saying to myself, Carl, you're a hypnotherapist. You
You should know
know this
better.
is
Yeah.
not real. But I couldn't undo it.
Isn't
I
that
couldn't
funny?
get over the. And I think it was a couple of days later we had a training session, and I had this wonderful lady that I trained with. She was in my cohort, and we did, because we did training with each other. Okay, this is what I work. And I said, I've got this really weird thing about heights. I said, I don't know where it comes from, but it's this ridiculous. It's so stupid. And she has this beautiful way, this sort of sing-song way, and I got very deep, and then suddenly I went back to being 4 years old. I was on top of a hay trailer with Dad going out to feed the cows, and I climbed up to the top of he said to me, don't climb to the top of the trailer. I climbed to the top of the trailer, and the bale fell off, and I fell off about 6 or 7 bales, fell off the back of the hay trailer and lay buried in hay in the middle of
Oh.
on the dairy farm.
Wow.
And I'd kind of forgotten that completely.
Huh?
And then she was like, oh, does anything come through? And I just said, oh, just hang on a minute. And I said, yeah, this is what it is, because you can talk when you're hypnotized.
Yeah.
You can talk. It's a bit slow and a bit groggy, and she goes, well, that was then. This is now. So
Wow. That's
yeah,
fascinating.
yeah,
Absolutely
yeah,
fascinating.
yeah.
I'm a
And
bit scared of what might come up.
well, that's the thing. You've got to trust yourself, and
That's the
also
thing.
too, your psyche knows what you can handle.
Yeah,
You
okay.
know, yeah. Your psyche knows what you can handle.
Carl, it's been
So,
absolutely fascinating talking to you, and I'm so blessed that you've come on, and I really appreciate it. Because this is, although I've been with the radio for quite some time and interviewed many people about their mental health journeys, because I've now gone independent, I've I've been a bit lacking confidence to do it. So the more I do, the
well
better I'll
done, you.
be. So yeah, I'm definitely, this is because this is my passion. Mental health is my
Beautiful.
passion,
Yeah.
and I really want to get people's stories out there so that people know that this is normal. It's
Yes.
mental health is, it's okay to feel the way that you're feeling. So I
Absolutely.
really appreciate
Definitely.
you
Yeah.
bringing your
Yeah.
story to the
Yeah.
book of mental health, and yeah, it's been a blessing. So I will definitely put the link on, and I'll
Oh, thank you.
release this as soon as I can, and I will be in contact because I'm fascinated to see how I can
Yeah, absolutely.
help
Definitely.
myself, because I definitely need to be unburdened.
Yeah, yeah. Well, just doing what you've done, like launching this platform is amazing. It's a testament to who you are,
Yeah, well, it's just, as I
and
said,
you,
it's a passion, and when you've got a passion, you tend to put 1,000% into it, don't you?
yeah,
But
absolutely.
yeah, so as you're well aware, so I really appreciate it. Thank you very very much, and I'll be in contact.
Okay, cool,
See you
lovely.
later.
Okay, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.